all the headlines made this time on the field by Israel Folau, who was the man of the match and a superb performance from the former Australian centre in that 14-40 victory for Catalans. Interesting, amusing that people saying, "Oh, if only he'd have been in rugby league longer." Yeah, but he's only in rugby league because he didn't behave on Instagram. That's why he's in rugby league.
Well,
get that. The same as Joel Monaghan and all these people.
He actually left rugby league to go to AFL for about $1 billion. So
that's another good reason. I'd do that for $1 billion. I don't know anything about AFL, but I'll turn up. Just a lot of people, just a lot of Australians.
It involves a lot of running and jumping, Rich. So
yeah, so I've been talking about.
You might struggle.
Well, it's a long time since I played basketball. In fairness,
I've seen that clip, Richard. I've seen that clip.
Well, that's why I talk about sport and don't do it. I know some of my limitations, not all of them. But back to the Catalans and Castleford. Well, Castleford go 14-0 up, John, and I thought, oh well, here we go, another big win for the Tigers. With predictions in, it's all good, and capitulated, fell apart.
Yeah, they did. I think, as Phil said, momentum is massive under these new rules, and when Matautia spear tackled someone in the ground and got sin-binned, and then they just continue to make error after error, give away penalties. The match completely, they lost grip of it completely, and I don't think anyone saw, what was it, 40-odd points, come from Catalans continuously, and Cass just fell apart. So it goes to show how much individual decisions, individual errors can impact the game. And obviously Catalans after the week before really needed a good performance, and that sort of final 55, 60 minutes, whatever it was pretty special.
Too much ban for Matautia for that one, Danika. Do you think he was lucky to stay on the field or come back on the field right after 10 minutes?
Well, I always found it a really funny thing because I don't know, maybe I'm, what's the right word to say? The decision was made, and that, is it ever intentional? It's never intentional, as the best way you want to put it, and it's just unfortunate. So, it's very difficult to say, and I'd hate to think that anything's intentional. So, he's paid his dues, and he's going to have to continue to now, and that they lost out for that time being and stuff. So I don't like to say whether it should have been more or less or whatever, but it cost them, didn't it? They suffered from it, and now they're going to, again, because he's going to have this time off in such a short league that they've got now in such a difficult time. So it is what it is, and he's going to have to pay the consequences regardless now. That's a bit of a fluffy answer, but that's genuinely how I feel.
Well, I mean, I've been throwing red cards all over the place if I was on the field. So, it's important to hear from a player. What did you make of it,
in real time, I thought probably referee got it about right. The more you slow something like that down, the worse it looks. I just thought Catalan really benefited from playing the week before, and their performance the week before was almost identical to Castleford's this week, and they changed their hooker as well, and nothing at all against Michael McAlorum, who's been absolutely one of the best that we've seen in that position in the modern era, but there was more dynamism around Ben Garcia, and I just think the way they played was on the basis of the fact that we've learnt a little bit from last week. We now know how to manage a game better. I think that's the difficult thing, that you can do all the training that you like, but until you have contact. And what was the stat that came out of week one? The ball was in play 13 minutes more than normal. I mean, that's massive. You cannot prepare for that, particularly when you've been on lockdown and training yourself, no matter how hard you've been doing it. For 5 months. How St Helens have turned themselves around is an absolute astonishment that we'll talk about, because they've done what no other set of players have been able to do, and they actually seem to have come back from a layoff far more athletic than they went into it. Now, I think part of that, and obviously we'll get onto it when we talk about them, is the fact that they still had the World Club Challenge in their system when we stopped the season, so rest has benefited them. But looking at the way the Dragons played this week, the whole way they approached the game was different, and I go back to exactly what Danika said. The protocols are fantastic, but they're incredibly different. You run out to do your warm-up, normally there'd be a huge wave of noise behind you. There's nothing at the moment. You go into the ground, you expect the dressing room to be laid out a certain way, or the entrance to be in a certain way. It's completely different. You get told what you need to do at half time, and whereas in the past you might have been able to go into certain areas, now it's relatively restricted. All your game day routine is completely upset at the moment, but when you've done that once, there's a chance that you're going to be better merely by having done it once. And I just got the impression that Darryl Powell wasn't as bothered as he would have been if you'd have given him that result in a normal season. It was, we know we can be better than this, because I think his players again got caught up as a couple of other sides did. Even Chris Chester, who but for a wayward conversion his team would have won, was saying his players were getting too caught up in the new rules. What they needed to do was go back to the basics that they know so well and master that, and then worry about the new rules. And I think that it's the same for Cass, but not for Catalan this week.
Mentioned him, John, and he was the star performer. Israel Folau. Don't he? He's all the cliches. Let's his rugby do the talking or whatever. But he did this week, and there's no denying he's a very good rugby league player.
Yeah, he's been a very good rugby player of either code for 12 years, 13 years. Michael Shenton just had an absolute bath against him. Every time he looked up, Folau was beating him with pace or with a little step or speed, strength. He basically tore him apart. And he's got that ability. Obviously, he's not played rugby league, 7 years or something? So it was going to take him a while to get back to his best. And if he can keep playing like that every week, then you've got to put Catalans sort of in that top 4 semi-final calculation.
I'm going to see Tom Davis get a couple of tries as well. Another young player who's had injury problems in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he finished his try well. And I think if he's playing outside Folau every week, then he's going to score a lot of tries.
I guess you would say then, Danika, judging by your theory earlier on the weather, the longer it stays as a heatwave, the better it will be for the Catalan Dragons as they continue to play over here.
Well, let's be fair. It's not going to stay for long, is it? This is the good old British weather. We'll have 4 or 5 days, and then it'll be freezing cold next week. So we'll have to see how they go next week. But no, I do think it's a massive thing. It's like when when we go out, when I've been out for a test match, you train for the first couple of days and you absolutely die a death because it's so much hotter. And then when it comes to the game day, you're used to it. And I guess that's what they're doing. They acclimatise. Yesterday or Saturday wouldn't have been much for them really, because it's so much hotter in the south of France at the minute. It's hitting 40 degrees at some parts. So you kind of think, did it make a difference to them? Yeah, being in a stadium for some reason accentuates the heat, but they've been to the process, like Phil said. They've had their match day. The travel alone must be difficult, but they've done that. They understand what the system's like at Leeds and Headingley and how that works. And they've been through that process the whole time. So, there was a lot of argument between who would benefit, Catalan because they've played or Cass because they're fresh. And I think once regardless of the new rules, and which obviously come into play hugely, but it is that new process, which I don't know if anybody really, if you don't play rugby, if you realise how much of a difference that makes to you. So I think they did have one opinion. Like you say, Novans have had a bit of a game, and we've essentially hit that round 1 for everybody. I think the next couple of weeks will bring up something else as well. So another few shocks in the system. So it'll be interesting to see how they do go forward next week, especially with how well Salford are playing.
I think the other thing when you talk about the weather, it's more the track. I think there are some teams that are absolutely ideally suited to a firm, fast pitch.
Yeah.
And clearly St Helens are the best example of that. They are absolutely revelling in, Headingley's been like a snooker table these last 2 weeks. It didn't look so crash hot at the beginning of the season in all the wet, but it is absolutely the perfect surface to play on if you want to play running rugby. I think the other thing, you mentioned their flights, and that's massive. They're not used to chartering a plane on the day of the match, flying in, coach journey where they're all shielded straight into the ground. The first time you do that, that's unfamiliar to you. That will affect the way you start a game. The second time you do it, it's becoming to become a bit more of a known factor. And I would expect, again, that the travel element for Catalan will get less of an issue over this August period when they're away in all of their games than actually it is during a regular season where you're at home for a week, or 2 weeks, you then get on a plane and fly over here and you spend a couple of days over here. And I think, the in and out hit at the moment will start to suit them, and I think it showed that this weekend.